Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Before my husband, 30, and I, 29 female, got married, we had meticulously planned our dream wedding. We wanted a small, intimate celebration. We have explained our wishes to family that we didn't want anything grand. But my mother-in-law, when she heard that, didn't like the idea very much. Despite our wishes, mother-in-law insisted on taking charge of the rehearsal dinner. She said it was the least we could do for not going with the kind of wedding that she liked. I was worried, but I couldn't say no at the time. My mother-in-law and I were never really close, and saying no to her requests would have put more distance between us. So I had to agree to her wishes. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, before we could start, I asked the venue if all the tables were set. They answered that they never got a call about the tables. I got shocked and panicked, and the only table I could reserve for the last minute was not enough to cater to all the guests. I couldn't do anything about it, and the whole dinner was ruined. Some guests had to sit at a different table, and it was clear that they didn't like it very much. The whole dinner was a disaster. Everyone's eyes seemed to judge me, and my mother-in-law took advantage of the chaos to shift the blame onto me, gossiping with family members about the fuss I made about planning my wedding. But it turns out I didn't have what it took. I couldn't just say that it was all my mother-in-law's fault at that time, because it would just seem like I was being petty or making excuses. In the aftermath, I bore the brunt of the disaster, with friends and family subtly pointing fingers. After the dinner, I confronted my mother-in-law about what happened. She said she was so busy keeping track of things that she forgot to call about the table reservation. I couldn't argue with her more and decided to just turn away. The damage was already done. Even after the wedding, my husband's family would act cold towards me. It's like a constant reminder of that humiliating day. It also felt quite guilty because I should have supervised even if my mother-in-law said she had it covered. What meant to be a happy day for me became something I hated to think about. When I visited the venue of the rehearsal dinner because of fees and stuff, I brought up what happened. I asked if my mother-in-law didn't call for a table reservation when it was the most important thing to do when planning a dinner. They replied that they tried asking her multiple times and reminded her, but she would always put it on hold or not answer the phone. She also rarely visited the venue. After hearing that, I was skeptical and decided to do some digging. Shockingly, I discovered that my mother-in-law had intended the things that happened. I knew we didn't have a good relationship, but sabotaging her own son's wedding is unheard of. I realized she never wanted our marriage to happen. This information made me realize that all her actions, the gossiping and the schemes, were all just to sabotage our wedding. I went through so much humiliation, and I even thought part of it was my fault. In a fit of anger, I went to my social media and posted about the injustice that I felt to somehow relieve all that I was feeling inside. I decided to expose the truth, detailing the deliberate acts of sabotage and revealing the hidden animosity. I didn't expect much from that post. I simply wanted to say my piece, and have even confided in my husband after. But the response was overwhelming, with some sympathizing and others questioning the authenticity of my claims. My mother-in-law, who was now exposed, decided to act all innocent, saying I was bullying her and making excuses about what happened. She told me to take down my post because it took a blow to her mental health and ruined her reputation. I haven't taken it down yet, but some of my friends and family have told me to think about it. I just think it's a small retaliation for the things I went through. What's supposed to be a dream event in my life was ruined because of her, and I can never get that time back. It's still depressing to think about it. But I don't know. What should I do? Am I really the a-hole for exposing the truth? Should I take down my post? Update. My post was seen by a lot of people in our community who shared and commented on it, sympathizing with me. And because of that, my mother-in-law has been calling me non-stop to take down the post. Thank you all for your kind comments. I'm taking all of your advice to not take down the post. My husband and I are planning to move away after our lease is up. He was also heartbroken and enraged with what his mom tried to pull, and he sides with me wholeheartedly. You're not the a-hole, OP. You don't have to take down the post that explains what happened during the rehearsal dinner and shares your point of view of what happened. You shouldn't have to take the blame for something that you had nothing to do with. Your mother-in-law intentionally sabotaged her own son's wedding, and she allowed everyone to be mad at you for what she did. She deserves to be exposed, and I'm glad your husband agreed to it. Let your mother-in-law take the blame for what she did. Story 2. I have 3 sons, all fake names. My oldest, Mike, 44, has 2 kids, Joey, 17, and Alana, 16. My second son, 42, Josh, has a son, Eric, 17, and is married to Rose, 43. My youngest is Paul, 23. I was more strict with Mike and Josh. I asked them both to move out as soon as they turned 18. I helped them get a place and find jobs though. With Paul, it was different. I was older with more experience. I let him stay with me after he turned 18, and he still lives with me. A few years ago, after Mike's wife passed away, he asked to move back in with us because of Joey and Alana, since Mike works long hours and they would be home alone all day. I let him move back in. Now Josh lost his job. He's asking me to let him move in with me until he can find a new job and afford a home. The issue here is that there is no place for him to stay. We have 2 bedrooms that are occupied by me and Mike, and we have turned the basement into 3 bedrooms for Paul, Joey, and Alana. I asked him if there was anywhere else he could go, maybe live with his in-laws, but he said he can't for multiple reasons. I talked to my kids to see if we can find a solution. Mike agreed to let Josh stay in his bedroom, and Paul agreed to let Eric stay with him. The issue was that Alana was the only girl in our home, and she didn't want to share with Rose. I explained the situation to Josh and told him if they move in with us, Rose will have to sleep on the couch. He got angry and said, I kicked him out at 18, so why can't I kick his brothers out now? They can all afford homes for themselves. I told him this was ridiculous. They live here now. I won't ask them to move out. He lost his job, it's his problem. He can't make it his siblings' problem. He called me an a-hole and said I'm favoring my other sons, but I don't think not kicking my sons out because their brother lost his job is considered favoring. You might be the a-hole, OP. I mean, why hasn't Paul moved out and started living his own life at 23? Why is Mike with 2 almost grown children just living there? I understand his wife passed, but the kids are certainly old enough now to be able to be at home while dad's at work. Josh, the only one who sounds like he's actually in dire need of a roof over his family's head, is being told no. While I would not want all of my grown children and their kids living back at home, I also would not allow 2 but not 3. Yes, your house, your rules, but this might be one of those things that doesn't get forgotten or heal so well. Now for some comments. There is a 20-year difference between Mike and Paul. OP can grow and change over time. The world has also changed in 20 years, and it was more normal to have your kids out at 18 back then than it is now. OP has more responsibility for their 23-year-old son than their 42-year-old son. They can't all fit in the house. They barely fit in the house now. The math doesn't work. Josh and his wife Rose need to figure out their own housing situation, like grown adults. An obvious solution was that both granddaughter and oldest son have their room currently. Depending on whether OP is a mother or father, OP gets one of them as a new roommate. Grandson number 1 gets grandson number 2 as a new roommate, and middle child plus wife suddenly have a spare room available. OP, you're the a-hole for your clear favoritism, or lack thereof, for the poor middle child. I have no idea how you can do the mental gymnastics to declare moving out in this economy is hard for the youngest child. But losing a job in this economy is the sole fault of the middle child. You're the a-hole. It's not about the fact that you won't kick the others out. It's that you let your youngest stay when you kicked the older 2 out. Then claim it's different, now to justify yourself. Then you let your oldest come back with his whole family when he needed help. and it sounds like you made some effort to accommodate them. Then comes your middle child, who needs help and turns to their parents just like he's seen his older brother and younger brother do. He's seen you help them so much, and he comes to you to ask for help, and you tell him you can't help as much because of his brothers, that your home is not open to him and his family can't be accommodated because his brothers are there. How is he supposed to feel? How do you justify treating Josh the way you do, simply because he was the last to need help? Story 3. It's taken a while to decide what to type, and it still may not be 100%. When I met my ex-wife, I was 18 and she was a few years older. Her son was 6 when we met. We got married the following year and her son took on my name, if that's relevant. I treated my son as equally as I could. I was married to my ex for 12 years. He was 17 when we separated. I still had him over whenever he wanted. He still had a room in my house, and I still paid for his university, so even though I separated from his mother, doesn't make him any less mine. I've since moved on from my ex and have a 5-year-old daughter with my wife. My son is 23, if that helps keeping up with the timeline. My wife suggested we move and I've agreed. It's about a little under 5,000 miles away, but it's the ideal spot to raise our daughter. I told my son, thinking he was not a child and would cope. Wrong. I got accused of replacing him, but I've included him in every family-related activity, plus have breakfast with him every Sunday morning. He's completely cut me off and blocked me on everything. I reached out to my ex and told her he would still have a room and I would pay for him to visit, only to be hung up on. I genuinely considered offering him to move with us, but he isn't a child and has a life where he is now. Am I the a-hole? I can't bear leaving if he's this upset over it, but I risk upsetting my wife then. Now for some comments. If my dad would tell me he's moving 5,000 miles away, I would be very hurt. I moved to a different country right before lockdown, 264 miles away, and haven't seen my dad in almost a year. I'm 27 and I miss him like crazy. He might have reacted badly, but my guess is he's hurt because he knows he won't get to see you that much. Not the a-hole. Even at 23, having the person you consider to be your father move so far away can be quite emotional. Sure, you're offering to have a room for him and pay for a trip and such, but he's thinking he'll never see you again. And that kind of feeds into the whole like, maybe I'm being replaced, etc. Hell, my mother is like 55 now, and I told her I was moving to another country and she took it like a champ. But I could tell she had a lot of strong emotions. Hell, I haven't lived at home in like 15 years. No a-holes here. For people saying he's a grown man, he still has feelings, and we can clearly see that OP is a very important person in his life. It's gonna be hard on him, seeing his beloved dad moving so far away from him, biological or not. I'm 21 and living around 800 kilometers away from home, and it is hard not seeing my mom, so I get him. OP, reassure your son that he is really important to you, and he will always be your son. His feelings are valid. You are not an a-hole for wanting a better life for your other kid. But remember to let your son know that you love him, no matter if he's 2, 23 or 63.